of this country. But I want to start out saying how offensive the notion of this review and its classification it ought to be to the American people. This is just another incident in a long pattern before this committee of information that is withheld from the public that is neither germane to national security interest in terms of its classification, nor is it impending on any legal processes. I read it. It was just merely a finding of facts prior to the event, and it ought to be available to the American public. And so I think we have classification. It ought to be politically embarrassing, and that ought to be a classification, top secret, secret, confidential, politically embarrassing, because a lot of the information, the majority of information that has come before this committee that has been classified is merely classified because it's politically embarrassing. Let me go to a question. General Casey had said right after the incident that after these people were killed that it was a great tragedy, but would be a greater tragedy if in fact we overreacted. And I think he was referring obviously to the Muslim Americans who are currently serving in the military. But I served during the Cold War, both the Army and the Marine Corps, and there was a counterintelligence strategy for which we could detect individuals who had sympathies with those who might be ideologically aligned to our opposition at the time, Marxist communism. And in fact, we had to affirm in statements that we had no, I think, relationship with a series of organizations that in fact were aligned directly or indirectly with our adversaries at that time, again during the Cold War. It would seem to me that we are at war now, whether we call it the global war on terror, whether we call it overseas contingency operations, with a version of radical Islam that has somehow morphed into a political ideology that has declared war on the United States. And so do you see that out of your recommendations, that we are in fact then able to have a system of counterintelligence that looks at linkages, that looks at objective patterns of behavior to try to decipher these sympathies with those who are aligned as enemies to this country? Mr. West, please.
I think the quick answer, Congressman, is yes. I think to some extent Secretary Gates even touched on that kind of an idea in his statement the other day when he released the report. The fact is we do have to respond today to today's imperatives. And those imperatives include the possibility, that's why we're doing this, that an incident like this could occur again, or worse, at several different installations at once, and that they could be part of a coordinated effort. So we need to look now at what Admiral Clark just again reemphasized as the indicators, and we have to look at them and then collect them and make them available so that people can use them as matchsticks as they evaluate what's happening in their units.
Admiral?
I reinforce my earlier comments. This is certainly that kind of collection is authorized in certain circumstances, and all of those are not a part of this committee's work, but of other committees in the Congress. It's a matter of, in the public domain, that improvements need to be made in that regard. And that is all then about information sharing. And I pressed the point earlier in response to another question, inside the department and in the interagency domain to help commanders connect the dots.
Let me just say in closing, thank you for your testimony, that I'd served in Iraq with the United States Marine Corps 2005, 2006, and I served with Muslim Americans there, and I was impressed with their service and their dedication to their country. But and I do believe that they would want a counterintelligence operation to where they were vetted, to where there were no question about their loyalty to this country. But I think they're a valuable asset to the armed forces of the United States. Thank you again. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank the gentleman, Mr. Reyes.